Welcome back to Small, Simple, Profitable. My name is Bob Goldman. The goal of this series is to equip you to start and run small businesses that are quickly profitable, simple to manage, and spiritually positive, whether you're doing business in your own country or in other countries. This 6th episode is focused on startup tool number 2, the Profitability Analysis Spreadsheet. This spreadsheet tool will help you estimate the profit potential of your business idea. This spreadsheet can be downloaded from the smallsimpleprofitable.com website under the episode notes. Let's review where this tool fits into the 4-step process for launching a new business. In step 1, the envision step, you can outline your business model by using the integrated lean canvas tool. In step 2, the estimate step, you can calculate the profit potential of your business by using the Profitability Analysis Spreadsheet, which we will discuss in depth in this episode. In step 3, the explore step, you can decide which aspects of your business you should investigate next by using the business exploration framework. In step 4, the evaluate step, you can decide whether the business is a good idea and whether you want to commit to actually launching it by using the business evaluation framework. Let's look at the second tool in this startup process, the Profitability Analysis Spreadsheet. In this episode, we'll walk through how to fill out this spreadsheet so that you create an interesting financial model for your business idea. Then we'll show you how to assess this financial model to see if your business idea is financially depressing or financially promising. And we'll look at practical steps to improve your financial model so that it has the potential to become financially promising. The Profitability Analysis Spreadsheet has 4 columns and 8 rows for your calculations, not counting the columns and rows that have labels in them. The 4 columns are low sales, medium sales, high sales, and break even. The 8 rows are annual sales volume, price per unit, annual revenues, variable costs per unit, total variable costs, annual fixed costs, annual costs, and the bottom line, the bottom row, is annual net profit or loss. 3 rows are more important than the others because they are the rows with the overall totals. Annual revenues minus annual costs equals annual net profit or loss. The rows along the side help you calculate your total revenues, your total costs, and your net profit or loss for each column. The cells shown in yellow are where you will enter your estimates. The other cells are calculated for you by the spreadsheet using the estimates you provided in the yellow cells. There are 3 supplemental sections where you can enter additional estimates that will feed into the cells on this main spreadsheet. Let's walk through a simple example to show how all of these calculations work. The first 2 rows multiplied together equal the third row. So annual sales volume times price per unit equals annual revenues. Let's suppose that you have projected sales of 1,000 units and you plan to sell those units at $20 each. Annual sales volume of 1,000 times $20 per unit would equal $20,000 in annual revenues. The next 4 rows will add up to your annual costs. Let's suppose your variable costs per unit are $15. If you multiply $15 times an annual sales volume of 1,000, your total variable costs will be $15,000. Let's also suppose that your annual fixed costs are $18,000. You can add up your total variable costs of $15,000 and your annual fixed costs of $18,000 to equal annual costs of $33,000. Now you can total the revenues and the costs in this example to calculate what the annual net profit or loss will be. In this example, annual revenues of $20,000 minus annual costs of $33,000 equal an annual net loss of $13,000. In the low sales column in this example, costs exceed revenues by $13,000, and the business would lose money for the year. This simple example helps you understand how this spreadsheet works. Now let's look at how you can estimate your annual sales volumes and your price per unit. For now, we'll ignore the break-even column and just focus on low sales, medium sales, and high sales. These estimates are easiest to come up with if you start with the second row in the spreadsheet, which is the price per unit. Let's define units of sale first. Units of sale can be products or services. If they're physical products, they're often referred to as widgets. The term widgets is commonly used in business training to refer to any physical items that can be sold, which can be cups of coffee or tools like screwdrivers or bicycle tires or bags of oranges. If the units of sales are services, they can be sold as hours, for example, hours of language lessons or hours of consulting. They can also be sold in packages, for example, days of training, or the units of sales could be number of students in courses. However your business is structured, in order to estimate the profit potential using this spreadsheet, you need to first decide what your units of sale will be. Then you can decide on a price per unit. In this example, to keep things simple, I'm going to use $20 per unit. Now, this could refer to $20 for an hour of language lessons, or $20 for an hour of consulting, or $20 for a half day of training. It could also refer to $20 for a tangible item like a tool or a bicycle tire or a bag of oranges. For this example, I will use hours of language lessons as the unit of sales, and I'll set the price per unit at $20 an hour. Once I've decided that my price per unit is $20, I can enter that into the second row of the spreadsheet. I'm going to keep it simple and say that the price per unit will be $20 an hour for all three columns, regardless of the sales volume. But it's certainly possible to have the price per unit go down as the sales go up. Now we can work on estimating the annual sales volume. Start by estimating the worst-case prediction of potential customer sales, which you will then put in the low sales column of the spreadsheet. Then you'll estimate your best-case prediction of potential customer sales, which will go into the high sales column of the spreadsheet. Then you'll choose a sales level somewhere between your worst case and your best case, and that will go in the medium sales column of the spreadsheet. For this simple example, I've chosen a low sales number of 1,000 hours of language lessons per year, a medium sales number of 3,000 hours of language lessons per year, and a high sales number of 5,000 hours of language lessons per year. There is a supplemental section of this spreadsheet tool which will allow you to estimate your sales volumes by month instead of by year. To get there in the tool, scroll down below this part of the spreadsheet into the rows below. In this supplemental section below the main spreadsheet, you can enter your low, medium, and high sales estimates by month of the year and total it for the year. For this example, I'm anticipating that the summer months will have slower sales, so I'm projecting sales for May through August that are half of the sales in the other months of the year. So this supplemental section gives you the option of estimating your sales volumes by month and adding them up to create the annual sales estimates. Going back to the main spreadsheet, you now have the sales volumes and the price per unit entered into the first two rows. The spreadsheet will now automatically calculate the annual revenues for each column. In this example, in the low sales column, a sales volume of 1,000 hours times $20 an hour will equal $20,000 in annual revenue for the year. In the medium sales column, a sales volume of 3,000 hours times $20 an hour will equal $60,000 in annual revenue for the year. In the high sales column, a sales volume of 5,000 hours times $20 an hour will equal $100,000 in annual revenue for the year. Next, let's look at the cost rows in this spreadsheet. There are two supplemental sections below the main spreadsheet that you can use for the variable and fixed cost estimates. In the next supplemental section below the main spreadsheet, you can enter the significant variable costs per unit. In this example, the only variable costs are an hourly employee making $15 an hour for each hour of language lessons given. There are other rows where you can enter other variable costs, such as the cost of materials, but I'm leaving them blank in this example to keep things simple. Notice that this section is labeled Significant Variable Costs per Unit. You have the option of listing every variable cost, no matter how small, like electricity used during language lessons or coffee and snacks provided during the language lessons. But I suspect those costs will be very small on an hourly basis, so they aren't worth getting into for this profitability analysis spreadsheet. You should only concern yourself with significant variable costs. In this example, the total variable costs per unit are $15 an hour for all three columns. The next supplemental section below the main spreadsheet is where you can enter your significant fixed costs per unit. List any major fixed costs for each level of sales. In this example, I've put in three areas of fixed costs. The first area is office rent, which I'm setting at $6,000 a year, which is $500 a month for this example. The second fixed cost in this example is paying for a part-time accountant, which I'm projecting at $3,000 a year for low sales, $4,000 a year for medium sales, and $5,000 a year for high sales. The third fixed cost in this example is wages for the business owner, that's you, which I'm projecting at $5,000 a year for low sales, $8,000 a year for medium sales, and $11,000 a year for high sales. These numbers are somewhat arbitrary, especially the wages for the business owner. But with any initial profitability calculation, these numbers are just a starting point. In this example, the total annual fixed costs, therefore, are $14,000 for the low sales column, $18,000 for the medium sales column, and $22,000 for the high sales column. Now that we've estimated the variable costs and the annual fixed costs in the section below the main spreadsheet, those numbers will be automatically copied into the main section of this spreadsheet. The variable costs per unit are $15 an hour, which the spreadsheet will copy into that row from below and multiply with the sales volume to calculate the total variable costs. In the low sales column, variable costs per unit of $15 an hour times 1,000 hours in annual sales will equal $15,000 in total variable costs. In the medium sales column, variable costs per unit of $15 an hour times 3,000 hours of annual sales will equal $45,000 in total variable costs. In the high sales column, variable costs per unit of $15 an hour times 5,000 hours in annual sales will equal $75,000 in total variable costs. If these numbers are starting to confuse you, take your time and go back over it until you understand it. You might also download the spreadsheet tool from the smallsimpleprofitable.com site and experiment with entering different numbers until you thoroughly understand how this spreadsheet works. Continuing on to the annual fixed costs row, these numbers will be automatically copied from the fixed costs section below, just as the variable costs were automatically copied from the section below. In this example, the annual fixed costs were $14,000 for the low sales column, $18,000 for the medium sales column, and $22,000 for the high sales column. This spreadsheet will automatically add the total variable costs and the annual fixed costs for each column and put those totals in the annual costs row. In this example, the annual costs are $29,000 for the low sales column, $63,000 for the medium sales column, and $97,000 for the high sales column. Finally, this spreadsheet will automatically calculate the annual net profit or loss by subtracting annual costs from annual revenues. In the low sales column, there are annual revenues of $20,000 minus annual costs of $29,000, which equals an annual net loss of negative $9,000. In the medium sales column, there are annual revenues of $60,000 minus annual costs of $63,000, which equals an annual net loss of negative $3,000. In the high sales column, there are annual revenues of $100,000 minus annual costs of $97,000, which equals an annual net profit of plus $3,000. Now that we've explored how to fill out the low, medium, and high sales columns in this spreadsheet, let's turn our attention to the break-even column. The goal in the break-even column is to adjust the sales volume until the net profit is zero. The term break-even comes from the idea of just breaking even with no profits and no losses in the business. The first step to calculating your break-even in this example is to fill out the price and costs information in this spreadsheet. First, I'll repeat $20 an hour as the price I'm charging per hour of language lessons. Next, I'll repeat $15 an hour as the wage I'm paying my part-time employee for conducting language lessons. Finally, I'll repeat the annual fixed costs of $18,000 from the medium sales column. Now I'm ready to choose an annual sales volume to enter into the first row. My goal is to choose an annual sales volume that will lead to a net profit of zero at the bottom of the spreadsheet. I can see that in this example I am losing money in the medium sales column because my net loss is $3,000. And I can see that in this example I am making money in the high sales column because my net profit is $3,000. Therefore, I'm going to try an annual sales number between 3,000 and 5,000 hours. When I try an annual sales number of 4,000 hours in the break-even column, I can see that the spreadsheet automatically calculates the other numbers in the column and shows me a net profit of $2,000. That tells me I need to try a lower annual sales volume than 4,000 since my goal is to get to zero profits. When I try an annual sales number of 3,600 hours in the break-even column, I can see that the spreadsheet automatically calculates the other numbers and shows me a net profit of zero. Here's what this means. Based on the assumptions in this spreadsheet, if I can sell 3,600 hours of language lessons in a year, my annual revenues will be $72,000, and my annual costs will also be $72,000, so my profit will be zero. Based on the assumptions in this spreadsheet, 3,600 hours is my break-even sales target. You'll note that I keep saying the phrase based on the assumptions in this spreadsheet, because I've had to make a series of guesses and assumptions about my potential sales and my potential costs in order to fill out this spreadsheet. This wraps up the section on how to fill out this profitability analysis spreadsheet. We've looked at how to fill out your annual sales and your price per unit, which will allow you to calculate your annual revenues. We've looked at how to estimate your variable costs and your fixed costs, which allow you to calculate your annual costs for the year. And then we've seen how the spreadsheet will give you your annual net profit and loss for all three sales columns. Finally, we looked at how to estimate your break-even sales target by adjusting your sales volume until your net profit is zero. Now you know how to fill out this profitability analysis spreadsheet. Frequently, when you enter your initial estimates into your profitability analysis spreadsheet, the results are kind of depressing. You begin to realize that your business idea could be a lot of work without much in the way of profit. In the example that I developed for this episode, it looks like you'd have to work pretty hard and be pretty lucky just to break even, and that's kind of depressing. So let's discuss what you can do about that. How do you transform your depressing analysis about your profit potential into a promising analysis? How do you get your business idea from depressing to promising? I want to propose 3 ideas that will help you get from depressing to promising. First, be honest when you assess the problems with your business model. This is not the time to be blindly optimistic and just hope for the best. This is the time to take a hard look at your profitability analysis and see what you can learn from it. Which assumptions are the riskiest in your spreadsheet? Are some of your estimates too pessimistic? Are some estimates too optimistic? What areas are keeping the business from being more profitable with less effort and less risk? Second, brainstorm some ideas that could solve the problems you've now noticed and make it easier for the whole model to be successful. Focus on those changes that would make a noticeable difference. Minor changes that don't make a meaningful difference are not worth the effort. Minor changes are actually distractions that will keep you busy and waste your time. So make sure you're working on major revisions that are worth the effort. When you first brainstorm your ideas, include every idea, include the most unlikely ones. At some point, though, you'll need to ask yourself if your ideas are realistic. If they're not achievable, they're probably not worth pursuing. Though I will mention that sometimes the most unrealistic ideas are the most interesting ideas to pursue, because if you could figure out how to make it work, you would have an innovative breakthrough that others haven't solved. It's risky, though, so think it through carefully. Realistic ideas are safer to pursue and probably a better starting point to improve the profit potential of your business idea. Third, develop your judgment and work at making good decisions. As an entrepreneur, you'll need to cultivate your intuition, your judgments, your insights, and your experiences. Business startups are not some magic formula that can be mindlessly followed. At every step of the way, you'll need to exercise good judgment and make good decisions. You should listen to advice and criticism from others, and then you should ignore at least half that advice and criticism. Good judgment is knowing which advice and which criticism to ignore and which to follow. You should also listen to your own intuition, but sometimes your intuition will be wrong, so you can't always trust it. Good judgment is knowing when to trust your intuition and when to ignore it. The bottom line is this: you should listen to your own ideas and the ideas of others, and then exercise your own judgment. It's your startup, and you're the one who's going to do all the work. So make sure you're developing good judgment, and then trust yourself when you apply that good judgment. When you've assessed the problems with your profitability analysis honestly, which is step 1, and you've brainstormed some good solutions to fix those problems, which is step 2, ask yourself 3 questions. Which ideas are the most promising? Which ideas are the least promising? And where should I start? Let's take a look at the example spreadsheet that I put together for this episode. The most basic questions you can ask yourself are these. What's the profit potential of this business idea based on my initial estimates? Does my profitability analysis show this business idea to be depressing or promising? When I look at this example, I think these initial projections look pretty depressing. Let me explain why. Here's what I see in this initial analysis. If you can achieve the level of sales that you said was pretty realistic, which is your medium sales column, you're still losing money. The medium sales column says that if you can sell 3,000 hours of language lessons in a year, you'll lose $3,000 for the year based on these current assumptions. In fact, this analysis says that your break-even level of sales is 3,600 hours of language lessons in a year, which gives you an annual revenue of $72,000, and you're still not making a profit because your annual costs are also $72,000. Selling 3,600 hours of language lessons in a year in this example is just your break-even point. Clearly, this example says that, based on your initial profitability analysis, you're having to work pretty hard just to break even. And if your level of sales is a little more pessimistic than you had hoped, meaning closer to the low sales column than the medium sales column, you're going to work really hard and still lose quite a bit of money. Something needs to be done. Let's propose some ways to fix the problems in this profitability analysis. In this spreadsheet, there are two major factors affecting your annual revenue, which are your sales and your price per unit. There are also two major factors affecting your annual costs, which are your variable costs and your fixed costs. Let's look at each in turn, starting with your sales volumes. As you assess your low, medium, and high sales projections, are they overly pessimistic or overly optimistic? Think back to the customer row in the integrated lean canvas. Box 5 is customer segments. Could you get more customers with less effort by expanding into other customer segments? Box 4 is customer access. Could you improve your sales if you are more effective at convincing customer influencers to help you get more customers? Box 3 is customer value proposition. Could you get more customers if you improved your sales pitch? Box 1 is customer problems. Have you correctly assessed your customers' major problems? Do you need to go back to square one and think about what problems you're trying to solve? Box 2 is customer solutions. Are you sure that your proposed solutions to customer problems are actually good solutions? Will they really help customers? Do your customers really believe in your solutions? Do they seem to be excited about your solutions, or are they just being polite? Take a hard look at your low, medium, and high sales projections and see if you can come up with good ideas to get more customers with less effort. Let's look at what happens to this financial model if we increase our low sales projection from 1,000 to 1,500, our medium sales from 3,000 to 4,000, and our high sales from 5,000 to 7,000. If we make these three changes to annual sales, notice that annual revenues increase to 30,000, 80,000, and 140,000. Notice also that the variable costs will go up because variable costs are directly linked to sales. And notice that the annual net profit or loss row has changed so that you're only losing 6,500 in the low sales column, you're making a profit of 2,000 in the medium sales column, and you're making a profit of 13,000 in the high sales column. Notice, however, that the break-even column didn't change. You still need 3,600 hours of language lessons just to break even. What this adjustment tells you is that every financial model will look better if you choose more optimistic assumptions about your sales. If you just assume that you'll have lots of customers, every business idea looks like a fantastic idea. Personally, I recommend being more pessimistic. I think it's healthier to assume that customers will be hard to convince. I think it's wiser to adjust other areas of your financial model. Let's look at what happens to this financial model if we increase our prices from $20 an hour to $22 an hour. We'll leave the sales levels unchanged at 1,000, 3,000, and 5,000. This small price increase from $20 to $22 an hour makes a difference in the bottom row, the annual net profit or loss row. Now you're losing $7,000 in low sales, making a profit of $3,000 in medium sales, and making a profit of $13,000 in high sales. Notice also that the break-even level of sales decreased from 3,600 hours to 2,572. That's a difference of 1,000 fewer hours to reach your break-even level of sales. This is good because it means you don't have to work quite so hard to reach break-even. Next, let's look at what happens to this financial model if we change our cost structure. We'll keep the sales assumptions the same, and we'll keep the price per unit the same. If you think back to the delivery row in the integrated lean canvas, how could we revise our delivery model so that it costs us less? Maybe we could simplify how we deliver our solutions. Maybe we could improve how customers receive them. Maybe we could offer more attractive features, more wow factors to our customers. The costs in this financial model are all linked to the delivery row in the integrated lean canvas. Let's look at what happens when we decrease our variable costs per unit from $15 to $14. Since the variable cost in this example was the hourly wage of our part-time employee, what we're really doing is decreasing that person's wage from $15 an hour to $14 an hour. Let's see how making this one change affects the annual net profit or loss row. Now you're losing $8,000 in low sales, you're making a profit of $0 in medium sales, and you're making a profit of $8,000 in high sales. Notice also that the break-even level of sales decreased from 3,600 hours to 3,000 hours. That's a difference of 600 fewer hours to get to your break-even level of sales. So this small change to the hourly wages of an employee makes it a little easier to get to break-even. However, I'm not sure this is a wise strategy. Good help is hard to find. You may have to pay more, not less, to get good employees and keep them for the long term. If you can't keep your best employees, your business will get into trouble very quickly. So I suggest that we try something else to improve our financial model. Let's look at what happens when we decrease our annual fixed costs by $4,000. Now, in this spreadsheet, the annual fixed costs are $10,000 in low sales, $14,000 in medium sales, and $18,000 in high sales. Since the fixed costs in this example were office rent, part-time accountant, and business owner wages, you could adjust one or more of these categories to decrease the fixed costs by $4,000 a year. Let's see how making this one change affects the annual net profit or loss row. In this example, now you're losing $5,000 in low sales. You're making a profit of $1,000 in the medium sales column, and you're making a profit of $7,000 in high sales. Notice also that break-even sales decreased from 3,600 hours to 2,800 hours. That's a difference of 800 fewer hours to get to your break-even level of sales. So this small change to your fixed costs makes it easier to get to break-even. You may remember from the first episode in this Small, Simple, Profitable series, Designing a Rapidly Profitable Startup, that I'm a huge fan of decreasing fixed costs in your startup. The lower your fixed costs, the easier it is to break even and make a small profit. In this example, a more dramatic reduction in your fixed costs would have a more dramatic impact on your bottom line. If you were able to lower your fixed costs by $9,000 a year instead of $4,000 a year, you can really see the impact in the bottom row, the annual net profit or loss row. In this scenario now, annual sales volumes are the same, price per unit is the same, and variable costs are the same. The only thing that's changed is that we've really lowered our fixed costs. Now the annual fixed costs are $5,000 in low sales, $9,000 in medium sales, and $13,000 in high sales. Let's see how making this one change affects the annual net profit or loss row. Now you're breaking even in the low sales column, making a profit of $6,000 in medium sales, and you're making a profit of $12,000 in high sales. Notice that the break-even level of sales decreased to 1,800 hours. However, notice that in this example, we're still using the fixed costs amount from the medium sales column. If you use the fixed costs amount of $5,000 from the low sales column, you see that you get to break even with only 1,000 hours in sales. It's far more comforting to have a financial model that says you can break even when you're using your worst-case projection of sales. And the key to doing this is focusing on reducing your fixed costs. The lower your fixed costs, the easier it is to get to break even with any business idea. Let's review what we've learned about this profitability analysis spreadsheet. We've walked through how to estimate your sales volumes, your price per unit, your variable costs, and your fixed costs. We've seen how this spreadsheet can take all these inputs and give you some projections of profits or losses for each set of estimates. We've also realized that these initial estimates are just your best guesses at the beginning of your startup planning process. And we've looked at how changing different numbers in this financial model can have a significant impact on your profit potential and your break-even sales target. I hope this episode has decreased your fear of spreadsheets in the business planning process. I hope you've gotten excited about using this profitability analysis spreadsheet to really think through the revenue and cost assumptions in your business plan. And I hope you've realized that you can really affect your perception of your business idea by being either too optimistic or too pessimistic in your financial assumptions. If you're too optimistic about your financial assumptions, you may think your business idea is the best idea in the world and can't possibly fail. If you're too pessimistic in your financial assumptions, you may think your business idea is the worst idea in the world and can't possibly succeed. The bottom line is that your best guesses are not a very good foundation for launching your business startup. You need to test your guesses, your assumptions, and your estimates with experiments and research. The next episode will look at how you can use the business exploration framework to identify the most important next steps in exploring and improving your business idea. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.